Well, all right, guys. It's 5:35, so I think we should get started. I just want to thank you guys for being on this afternoon. It's a beautiful day, at least in Chicago. So thanks for the time and for showing up and for the interest. Ashvini, can you start to record this or verify that we're recording here?
Yeah, I'm just gonna start now.
All right, and then
recording in progress.
Let's share my screen. Just make sure that I can do that. Can everybody see my screen? Yes?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. Okay, well, my name's Andy Savoy. I'm with a company called Core Spaces. We are a developer based out of Chicago. And we do all kinds of residential development, but mostly in student-oriented markets. And I'm here today to talk about the Ann Arbor Credit Union site at 333 East William, which you can see on the screen here, highlighted in yellow. With me, I have my team. I have Luke Bonner from Bonner Advisory. He's helping us through the process of submitting a site plan in Ann Arbor, since we are from out of town. We have our architect Dwell Design Studio. So Ashvini and Ian and Jay are all with Dwell. They're have been doing a fantastic job for us with the design. And we have Scott Betzel from Midwestern Consulting. He's our civil engineer. And so that's kind of the team that I have with me today. And I just want to go into a little bit about Core Spaces. Basically, Core Spaces has been in business for about a decade. It was about 2013, 2014-ish, whenever they started off doing their own kind of student housing projects. They were involved with a contractor before that who did a lot of construction for student housing, and the founder actually broke off and started Core Spaces in the early 2010s. And since then, we've developed many assets, over 30 assets, over 20,000 units, and over $4 billion of construction cost. And we are very much interested in high design and developing and delivering the kind of alpha product to the market. So you can see on the right there, you know, we've gotten innovation and design awards almost every single year that Core has existed. So we are kind of very involved in that side of the development process. We are a national developer. So you'll see this map here of all the places we've developed projects. We have developed in Michigan before, and specifically in Ann Arbor before. This is kind of our local experience to speak of, the hub on campus in Ann Arbor, right on Huron Street. We did sell that to ACC back in 2019, but by and large, we do keep and manage our own projects. So we are very involved in that side as well. So we don't just go away after we deliver a project. Here are a few other examples of our work. We've done projects all throughout the Midwest, and these are just our Midwest projects. These don't even include, you know, the West Coast and Southeast projects that we've done. And so we have quite a body of work, all Class A+ projects that are very responsive in terms of design and, you know, giving back to the community whenever we can, with high quality retail spaces, active streetscape, etc. And so we're here today to talk about this site, 333 East William Street. That's the credit union site. We're the contract purchaser of this property. And we're looking to submit a site plan in the next few months for a residential tower project. Would be about 200 units. And here you see shots of the site the way it exists right now. It's directly adjacent to the library building. And it's in between William and Library Lane. And Library Lane is actually the roof of an underground parking deck, which is immediately adjacent to us to the north. Another thing that kind of is important about the property is there's a brand new bike lane that we really like and think is nice. And so it's important to us to minimize the effect that we have on that with our new development. And so this shows you kind of how that looks right now. And so before I show you anything, I just kind of want to go through, how we'd like to approach today and the schedule. So right now, we're having our citizens participation meeting. We plan on presenting to the design review board on Wednesday. And then the way the process works, we take all the feedback we hear from this meeting and from the design review board, and we then incorporate that into the design. And only then do we submit our formal site plan to the city. And with that, we need to submit a report saying everything we heard and how we're responding to the comments that we heard. And so what you're about to see is early. We do understand and anticipate that there might be some changes as we react to your comments, the design review board's comments, and then also we're having meetings with the local utility companies and fire department to make sure that the way we've laid out our site works for them as well. And so before we get into the specifics, there's a quick zoning overview here of what we're requesting, which is basically nothing. The project where you're about to see is 100% by right. It's within the height limit. There's no setbacks required in this zoning district. And the project density, we're kind of within the density that you're allowed to do there. There are some premiums that increase your density for providing specified benefits to the public, some of them being affordable housing, public open space, sustainable building practices. And we do intend to use those to increase our density, but not beyond what's already allowed in the code. And then step backs, it's 5 feet required above the second or third floor, and we're complying with that. So what you're about to see is a by right project. And the schedule is that we're going to collect your comments after this presentation, and we will present to the DRB and accumulate all those comments into a report that will go in with the final submittal, which we anticipate will be in May or June of this year. So I'm going to start with a massing that we previously presented kind of at an informal meeting back in January. And it shows very simply the overall scale of what we're presenting or what we're proposing and some of the numbers. So the FAR, the maximum you can do in this area is 900% of whatever the lot size is. So we're within that. We're actually slightly under that. As you can see, the max height is 180%, and we are below that, as you'll see. We're very similar to kind of what you're seeing here when it comes to the overall massing, and you'll see a kind of a more reddish portion of the building, which is at the ground, which is kind of this solid plinth, which then goes into a tower above. And as far as the residential units go, we were projecting 190 to 210 units and 600 to 700 beds. And right now we're at around 195 units and 640-ish beds. And so we're well within what we projected. And we're a 16-story building right now. So this was previously presented in January, and it's going to be very similar to what you're about to see. This is another slide that shows the area, and we've highlighted in red all of the kind of large civic scale things going on around the site. just to highlight that the scale of what we're proposing is in line with some of the larger uses that already exist around the site. And so you can see we have the public library, the transit center, the federal building, and Liberty Plaza all within a block of our site. And those are all very large civic scale type uses. And so that is in line with what we're proposing as well. Also on this slide, you'll kind of see our initial thought of how we were going to flank all of the frontages of the site and what uses we were going to propose. We haven't deviated from that much either. So you can see we're proposing active uses along William Street, amenity and lobby spaces, so that that entire frontage is activated at all times. And then we flank the east side and the east and north sides of the site with townhomes that would actually be ground level, 2-story dwelling units to basically, face the kind of lower scale buildings along Division Street and Library Lane, which we think is a positive attribute of what we're proposing. And we have kind of consolidated all of the back of house and mechanical space in the northwest corner of the site, which is across from where the library already has their loading anyway. So we felt that that was probably the most appropriate place to locate those uses. And so these are the things that have been previously presented at other public meetings, informal, but yeah, okay, so let's see here. Can everybody see the full screen? I just got a text from somebody on my team. Can everybody see the full screen of what I'm presenting?
Yeah.
It just shows like a little bit part of our screen, not entirely like stretched out. So I'm not sure if it's like a full screen mode that you can use.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna stop my share and then reshare it real quick. Hopefully that will work. Sorry guys, I just got that text saying that this was going on, so.
Yeah, that's much
Is
better.
that better?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry guys, that was okay. So just to recap, this is just in case you didn't see it in detail. This is the massing we previously showed, showing the tower over some kind of podium element. 195 units, 640 beds is where we are right now, and it's a 16-story building if you count the mezzanine level, the second story of the townhome. So this is where we have ended up. So I'm showing on the right our site plan as it is today. On the left, you'll see a survey of the site, and so that this building here is the existing credit union building. The green line is a bike lane, and right now there's 2 curb cuts where those red triangles are. So cars actually cross the bike lane at 2 different points right now. And what we're proposing is to eliminate one of the curb cuts that is further to the east and provide only a pedestrian connection, which would be open to the public and actually allow access from William Street all the way to Library Lane. And that would be landscaped and well lit so that it's a safe passage at night, very obvious to the public that it is open to the public at all times. And that would be flanked with townhome units that would look out over that. You see here how we've located our leasing and amenity space along William. This would be double story space, as you'll see later on. So you're looking at a 21 or 22 foot clear high space. So very dramatic ground floor kind of expression there. And then we are keeping the curb cut that already exists to the west side of the site and using that for all of our loading and trash service. And so it was important to us, I guess, to not have trash trucks just stopping in the middle of that bike lane that's so nice and relatively new. We wanted to allow the trash trucks to actually pull all the way into the site, and then they actually have to back up and turn around to leave. So they could, because the waste management does not allow you to back out of a site. They need to turn all the way around. And so we're using that existing curb cut to provide that access for our loading, trash pickup, and kind of MEP components like our transformers and generator, which you'll see at the end of that alley. So, you know, we think that having those townhomes kind of on the east and north side is also a very positive way to activate those parts of the site, which right now are just kind of the back of a parking lot area. And so they will have, you know, finished space facing those two frontages, which we think is an improvement as well. So these are the floor plans. If you look all the way to the left, that's the one we just saw. It just doesn't have the background, so you can kind of clearly read where things are. The yellow blocks are the townhomes. Those are 2-story dwelling units. The pink is leasing and amenity, and so that would include our leasing offices, our lobby space, a fitness center with locker rooms, our mail room and package area, and then you'll see we have a large bicycle storage room back there as well. The mezzanine floor, you'll see these white squares with X's through them. That indicates that that's a double-story space, and so that's just open to below. And so this entire frontage is a 2-story space. And then there is kind of a mezzanine area for fitness-related uses, probably a yoga room of some sort. And then the second level of the townhome units are on this level, and a maintenance room. And that's really all that exists on the mezzanine. Then you'll see level 2. And so you'll see that the orientation of the building shifts. So now it's a C shape facing east rather than facing west. And there is a terrace area, which would be private. That's not we don't envision 100 residents up there because we have a terrace on the top of the building where we would have that, but we don't want to contribute to any noise or anything at the ground level in those people's backyards. So we've kept the terrace level private so that only a few residents have access to that. And then you'll see as we go up the building, this is level 3, and then 14 through 12 is where we kind of have our typical level. And so you'll see we have a combination of 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, studios, and 1. And so this project would be, you know, it would certainly cater to students. Anybody could live there, but that is certainly a target demographic of this project. So I don't want to disguise that in any way. We get up to the roof, we have additional amenity space and an open terrace facing south. And this is, you know, 14 floors up, so it's very high off the street. And you'll see there's additional townhomes up there as well. And so those townhomes are 2-story townhomes, and those are on the kind of the north side of the plan. And so for the material expression for this building, and I'll show you a rendering shortly that's a little bit more clear, but what we wanted to do was we wanted for there to be a podium element that was monolithic and somewhat civic in nature to kind of relate to the existing credit union building, the library. And so we have kind of sandstone colored brick there with punched openings. And so what you're looking at on the south elevation, so this would be if you're standing in Williams Street, you'll see that this first 2 stories is a brick block with the tower sitting on top of it. And that's actually a zoning code required thing, that there be some kind of step back on top of a podium. And so we are complying with the code in one way, and then also I think providing a nice ground level experience with lots of windows along William as you walk by. The west elevation would be if you're standing down that service alleyway. And so you see our bike room here. This would be our kind of loading area. But this is the face of the building that faces the library. And so not a lot of people, I think, are going to see this elevation. And so this is where all of our service kind of related activities are going to be located. And then these are the 2 sides of the elevation that actually have townhome frontage. And so the north elevation, this would be if you're standing on Library Lane and looking at the building, you actually see these townhome elements here. We have a nice branding opportunity here, which is in front of a kind of a mechanical space that is required to be there. And then this is the east elevation. So that's that pedestrian connection from William Street, which is over here, to Library Lane, which is on the right. And you can kind of see here, we've kind of shaded that area to show that this is actually a U shape. So that building goes back about 50 feet from here to there. And you can see it's kind of shaded. The top is expressed separately from the tower. We wanted that to be, the building to have a bottom, a middle, and a top. And so that amenity space and those townhomes are kind of expressed similar to the plinth in that way. This is a section showing where our amenities are. So we have a lot of amenities on the ground floor. William would be here. And then we have additional amenities on the roof. And so the main exterior area where most of our residents would be here, 14 floors above the street. And so that's very far above the street and above the existing neighbors. And so that was done by design. Also, there's a dotted line here that shows that we're well under the maximum by right building height. So we're not asking for any kind of height variance here. This is what that all comes together to look like. And so you see here that we have, we're proposing this kind of sandstone, kind of solid base that then opens up to a main entrance, which would have a covered kind of open area. And then other types of expression that break the plane of the tower above. Ooh, I'm sorry. And then as we get to the tower above, we're proposing a panelized system that accentuates kind of a grid so that it can stand out and be a different thing than the kind of monolithic base that we have. And you can see, this would be that private terrace. The public terrace would actually be up here. And you can see that some townhomes kind of peeking out above. And so that's as far as we are. I have not taken a look at who's all joined. I heard a few dings, but there's not a whole lot of people here. So I was thinking that we would, if you have comments or questions, if you could just state your name. I'm gonna just open it up. You can use the tools of Zoom to kind of raise your hand. We'll unmute you, and you can just state your name and let us know what you think and how you think we could make this better. So I could open that up for comments right now if you guys are ready.
Looks like Vince Caruso is the first to raise his hand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm Vince Caruso, coordinating member for the Allens Creek Watershed Group for the last 25 years. The Allens Creek Group does not support tall buildings in Ann Arbor. We support low-rise buildings. For a 16-story building, just the concrete and steel alone will produce about 16 million pounds of carbon emissions. The city passed a $1 billion 820 program for reasons to reduce carbon emissions in Ann Arbor. Paris is mostly a 3 or 5 or 6 story city, is more dense, has a larger population than cities with skyscrapers. Neighborhoods of skyscrapers would result in about 140% more total emissions than a Paris-like low-rise area with the same population and density. Tall buildings are not human-centered and reduce the worth of the community and reduce tax base. Tall buildings are incredibly inefficient compared to smaller buildings to about 8 stories. Poor insulation, windows, inoperable windows, HVAC, and non-window siding, if any. Most are built with extensive, very inefficient, low-cost glass windows for siding. Ann Arbor tall buildings are not being built to acceptable standards according to reliable sources inside and outside of City Hall. Poor insulation and ceiling are just some of the examples. New York City is now taxing tall buildings based on excessive energy use in an attempt to force owners to make the buildings much more energy efficient and cut down on carbon emissions. Most building owners say this is going to be impossible to do. Having very little or no on-site parking required for these tall buildings is great for developers, much more income, but bad for citizens in Ann Arbor, especially nearby neighborhoods whose streets will be potentially parked up 24/7. Ann Arbor has drinking water issues. We're close to reaching our limit. Great Lakes Water Authority was shown to be not an option, especially based on the exorbitant costs and poor quality. The city had considered Great Lakes Water Authority, but has rejected that. Tall buildings are not the answer to housing shortages, or a blight on the community, produce much more pollution and carbon emissions that will be with us for decades. This one we are being asked to sacrifice and reduce for carbon emissions in Ann Arbor. Thanks for your time, I appreciate it. And you can check the cwg.org website for more details. Thanks.
Thank you, Vince. I appreciate that comment, and I can respond on a few of those issues. The first issue is the sustainable construction portion of your comment. Ann Arbor is very forward thinking, and they give density bonuses for projects that comply with green building standards. And so we would have to go LEED gold for this building, which is far and above what we would typically do in order to get the density that we need to make this work. So that means triple pane glass, very expensive. It means VRF, HVAC systems that allow you to pump heat from one side of the building to the other, and several systems that are much more expensive than would typically be required. And I didn't do a good job of presenting that whenever I kind of ran through the project itself, but this project would have to comply with a LEED gold standard of construction. As far as the parking goes, we are proposing very little parking. And just to be clear, we might be able to make this bike storage area a bit smaller and fit about 4 parking spaces for employees there. But other than that, the project would have no parking underground. And that's because there's, last time we checked, about 600 spaces available in the already built subterranean parking deck directly to the north of us. And we've already discussed that high level with the Downtown Development Authority, and they did express their willingness to lease directly to our residents. And so we think that making use of an already existing parking deck there is about as sustainable of a thing as you can do, given the fact that it's already been built and that carbon has already been emitted. And then the last thing is, you mentioned running out of drinking water. This project is aiming to house people who are going to be in town anyway. We are not increasing the population of Ann Arbor. I think the university is doing that, and we are trying to provide housing options for the students that are going to be there, and they're going to take the same number of showers and drink the same amount of water in any case. And so while I agree with you, it's something that is very important. I don't think this building is really going to be responsible for using water insofar as those people would be using water elsewhere anyway.
Thanks, Vince. Next question or comments. Vince, are you raising your hand again, or did you forget to take down your hand from the first time?
Gotcha.
There we go. You're more than welcome to ask more, for sure. Someone with LYCH as the screen name. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't put in my full name. My full name is CHEN. This is my first name, last name LYU. Sorry, this is kind of when I log into Zoom. It's just automatically show.
Okay.
No worries.
No No problem.
Yeah, and for full disclosure, I'm a student at U of M and also a reporter with our student paper Mission Daily. And I when I see this development, so some of the questions that emerge, the first is, so for the reduced parking part, could you disclose if that part is also enabled by the city's ordinance last year that eliminate the parking minimum? This part is just out of curiosity. And
it certainly is. Yeah, there is no parking requirement for D1 right now, which is a zoning classification that we're in.
Get it. And for the next two questions, I guess I probably missed some earlier part of it. What do you expect the kind of demographic breakdown for this development between student and probably workers? And I think another element I'm interested is for this building, what's the extent of electrification that you have done in this high rise?
Those are all very good questions. So the demographic breakdown, we frankly anticipate the majority of residents to be students. We have some buildings where we have a few students, maybe up to 5, or a few residents, maybe up to 5% that are not students. But we anticipate that just given the nature of the building and the proximity to campus, this is going to be a mostly student-occupied building. This side of campus is more of an upperclassmen side of campus, so we have factored that in and provided more studios than we otherwise would, because we found that upperclassmen like smaller unit types. They don't like to live in 4-bedroom or 6-bedroom units, and so we have taken that into account. But we do think that it's going to be a majority student building. You do not, to be clear, have to be a student to live here. There's no rule saying you do. So anybody who wants to live in this building could live in this building. But if you ask me to guess, I would say probably 95 to 100% of the people who live here would be students. Although we would not turn anyone away for not being a student, to be clear. The electrification question is a very good one, because right now that's still up in the air, and we are assuming that it will become a requirement. And so this building would be, if required, a fully electric building. We're prepared to do that if we have to. It is a little bit more expensive. We were a little bit afraid initially at how much more expensive it was going to be, but it's not that much. We're still working through the details with DTE, the power company, to ensure that they have the capacity to deliver that much electricity to us. But we don't see it being a huge issue right now, and I'll certainly let you know if that changes. But right now, we've assumed that electrification ordinance is going to go through, and that we would have to comply with it.
Thank you so much. And I think, and I think one of the very last question is, to what extent does this development also use affordable housing premium for downtown development? So I can understand the amount of affordable units you might include in this project.
Right. So the current code contemplates 3 different levels. It's 15%, 20%, or 30% of your square footage as affordable. And so right now, and you get different levels of density for each one of those. And for what you're seeing, we would have to provide a 20% level of affordability. And you can pay a fee to the Affordable Housing Fund for up to half of that, which we would do. But it would be a 20% base level of affordability is what we're assuming we're going to have to comply with. Although, we'll see where we are whenever we actually get pricing back, and that can be something that we weigh the option of maybe going LEED Platinum and then 15% affordable, rather than LEED Gold and 20% affordable. That's a trade-off that we would need to make once we have all the costs out in front of us. But right now we're assuming LEED Gold and 20% affordable.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Anyone else?
A few chats that I didn't. Oh, I see.
Don't have to want to call on people. Could do that.
What'd you say?
I said, might just have to call on people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a smaller group than I was thinking we'd get. So everybody feel free to voice your opinions. It's the reason why we're here. So
yeah, also feel free to send them question through chat if that is more, if you're more comfortable with that.
all right. So, what do you think, Luke? We have anybody else have any questions, or should we call this meeting?
Yeah, if you just want to do maybe some closing comments, Andrew, I think that's fine. Oh, here we go. From Benon to everyone. Is this building planned to be privately owned units?
Right. So it would be a rental building. So it would be owned by Core Spaces, which is my company. And so we would just rent the apartments out every year. They wouldn't be for sale or anything like that. They would be rentals, but privately owned, not in any kind of affiliation with the university in any way.
Thanks for the question.
Great.
Yeah, I think you're free to maybe add some closing comments, Andrew, and we can conclude.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your comments. I really appreciate them. We want to make this building the best building it can be. So, I'll post my name and my email in the chat. And if you have any thoughts that come to you in the night about any way we can make this better, please let us know, because we sincerely do want to make this building and this development the best it can be. I'm going to type my name in the chat right now. I'm Andy Savoy again. I'm with Core Spaces, and we'll be presenting these exact drawings to the design review board on Wednesday. They're going to have their own comments too, and so the plan going forward is to gather our thoughts and try to respond to everything we hear in our final submittal, which is probably going to be in mid-May if we can. So that is the goal. We appreciate your time. We hope that you like what you saw, and if you don't, you'll have my email and my contact information, so you can tell me exactly how you feel. But thanks again, everybody, for the time and the comments.
Oh, sorry. Could you share your name and contact again? I didn't see anything in the chat.
I'm typing it right now. This is directly to Liz here. I'm trying to figure out how to add this.
Make sure your message is going to everyone. I don't see it.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, I see Andrew support.
All good? All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate you joining us on a lovely day. So thanks again, and you know how to find me if you have any errant thoughts that occur to you later. So thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.